Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Phixated podcast. I don't know, you might be hearing something a little bit different than our usual intro. We just kind of threw that together tonight. I don't know what made me think of it, but I just started thinking about something a little bit different to put on the intro to the episode. And, what better way to start the podcast than three of, the more famous calls from our various radio and TV announcers that we've had in Philadelphia. So I hope everyone enjoyed that. We'll be kind of advancing the intro a little bit here and there. But as always, we need to not go too far without welcoming the host of our show, Mr. Mike Azzolina. Azzy, how are you doing, buddy?
Dude, I'm goosebumps everywhere, man. Before the show, you guys have to know that, like, when Regs played this for me the first time, I immediately started like mimicking the words.
Mm-hmm.
the oh my God, John Krukman.
That's still my kid. It's like my kid's favorite thing that's ever happened. We've watched that clip 100 times.
Oh, that was so cool. And we joked beforehand about, Merrill and Harry, and that Harry call, Andrea would tell you begrudgingly that was my alarm for 5, 6, 7 years. That's how we woke up every morning was Harry Callis's World Series, his World Series call. And, Harry was the greatest and will forever be. No disrespect to Tom McCarthy, who's tremendous, but Harry's the guy.
Yeah, he's the guy. He's the guy for us, and that's okay. His call will never not give me goosebumps. I even showed you on the camera before we started recording. Like, anytime I hear it, no matter time, day, where I am, doesn't matter. I will. That is my body's visceral reaction to that clip. I can't help it. But Azzy, we can't go too much farther without also mentioning that there might be some people watching this on YouTube.
I mean, I don't know what they're thinking. We're like a significant decrease in handsomeness from Banksy, like on this side of the screen.
I don't know about that. I can't, I love my podcast hosts equally, so I can't say anything about it,
No, but in all honesty, like watching you guys on your first episode last week with the YouTube channel was really cool. It was cool. I just knowing you guys, I can visualize your facial expressions and, your reactions to each other when I listen. But I think watching it was just a different reaction from my side. Being able to watch you guys. So when I was watching it, I immediately texted you and said, we're doing this in our next one.
Yeah.
I hope people enjoy it. Like I do hope that they enjoy like our body language and our communication in this regard too. And I hope they continue to listen in the podcast version too.
That's right. Everything will be available. Nothing is going away. This will be available, wherever you usually listen to us. So don't worry about that. But if you'd like to see a little bit more facial reaction and get a look at this beautiful, handsome man, over here to my left,
Onto yourself.
Why wouldn't you is what I say, why wouldn't you want to see us? But yeah, it's, again, we had, those goals for the podcast and we're ticking them off and we're just going to get it done and we'll refine things and we'll get better at it and we'll, do what we got to do to keep improving. But we're getting some big things done, man.
Rex? You know what's next?
What's next?
I'm going to get really good lighting like you have.
So listen, this was a lot of Christmas presents that put this setup together. I had very specific asks from, various people to improve the podcast setup. I think I showed you and Adam, right, the other night, what I was working with. But luckily, it's a budget setup, but, it does the job. It's working well. As you'll be,
you sound great. You look great.
Listen, in a week or two, once those Amazon boxes come in, you'll be good to go, buddy.
I'm going to be all set up down here with Brad Lidge behind me and Matt Stairs behind me.
I have 3 of those Phillies Stadium things, one for each kid's room. They
really?
They all have one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You know, the stadium like pulls it all together, right? You've seen my basement, and I'm not gonna show it all, but like I've got this whole Roy Halladay side over here, and then I've got like the World Championship side over here. I've got Pete Rose autograph up there, and I've got Matt Stairs. It says "Good Night, L.A." and it's signed by him over there. Shout out to my cousin Mike, a Dodger fan. Welcome. And then I got the Brad Lidge on his knees after the World Series win with every it's actually the word art, so it's every single save that he had, the final score.
That's awesome.
That like drew him
Yeah,
into
yeah.
the picture. It's really, really cool. So you know, one of our episodes, I'll just do a tour of the basement.
I was about to say, dude, we have a YouTube channel now. Just get your phone out and just, you know, give us a basement tour.
We'll do the basement
We'll
tour.
throw it
We'll
up
do
on
it
the
all.
YouTube channel.
Yeah. We'll do that. We'll do that next week sometime. I'll do a quick basement tour of all the memorabilia that I have up from the Super Bowl and
There you go.
The World Series and some of the Hall of Fame stuff that I have. So
Content
we'll do that next week.
content coming your way, people. Be prepared.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, dude? This is awesome.
We did it, buddy. Cheers to you, friend.
Cheers to you, man. This is incredible. I'm really excited that we're doing this on YouTube, and hopefully people enjoy this version as much as, you know, the podcast version. I can't thank everybody enough for continuing to listen and the feedback that we've gotten on the show. So we got some content for you tonight, and we're gonna actually step outside the Philadelphia box a little later too, aren't we?
That's right. We're gonna, you know, we mix it up. We keep people on their toes. You know, we are a Philadelphia sports podcast, but we are sports fans in general. You know, we aren't so late. You know, we don't have so much blinders on that, you know, we can't see what else is going around. So, you know, we don't talk about it a lot, but when we have an opinion about something, we're gonna bring it up. That's the beauty of it, right? It's our show. We get to do what we want.
Yeah. Well, let's start in Philly though. So
right.
Tonight, guys, we're gonna do this entire episode in a version of Agree and Disagree, which we introduced earlier in the month on one of our first shows of the new year. And gonna give you a statement, and we're both either gonna agree or disagree, and then sort of talk a little more in depth about whatever we're trying to get to from that statement. So we're gonna start with football. Okay, we talked about how we're going to step away from the Eagles, but it's really hard to step away from the Eagles. Like, it's really difficult for us to do that. And I, you know, we talked about it, but we're going to dive right back into them right away tonight. And we're going to start with this agree or disagree statement. And just like we did in the past, we're not going to tell you who said it until after the conversation. So the statement was that any quarterback can develop. Any quarterback or any player, let's just go any player can develop. Regs, do you agree or disagree with that?
I agree on a sliding scale. Like, okay. I think each player has a certain potential. Like, I don't think there's not, and we've seen this in every sport, right? There's maybe once a generation guys like Tom Brady who go from the 7th round to what he's become, right?
Right.
But I tend to believe that ability was in him all along. The necessary steps happened and he worked his tail off to get to that point. But if you take like an 8th rounder, you know, from any sport or something like that, I think they have a ceiling probably, unless they are just like a generational talent. So I think the answer is yes, but I think it's a sliding scale to what that potential is.
Right. I agree. There's a ceiling, and I think there's like a level of coachability that a player has to have in order to do it. And there's got to be some, like you said, there's got to be some form of talent in that way too. Like the ceiling matters,
right.
You know, the floor and the ceiling matter, because you can be the most coachable person on the planet. I was a very coachable player in every sport that I played, but my talent, there was a certain ceiling that you hit. So, you know, there was so this quote actually came from me. So I think both of us agree to the extent of like, yes, players can develop, but only to the point of their ceiling. And that's an important piece to what we're about to talk about, because there was a graphic that came out this week, and Regs, if you don't mind indulging me in reading out this graphic to you.
Please do.
And to our audience, and eventually to our audience, what we'd like to do is be able to post this graphic, and we will. We're working toward that. But for now, I'm gonna read this to you. It was a graphic that compared Jalen Hurts and, man, superstar Josh Allen. Wait, before we go further, did you watch this weekend, the division weekend?
Yes, I did. It was unbelievable.
It was truly the best weekend of football I've
it was
ever
crazy.
watched. Did you have a favorite game from the weekend?
I mean, I was riveted by Rams. Who the heck was it? San Francisco? No, Rams Bucks. Yeah,
Rams Bucks. Yeah.
When Matthew Stafford threw that pass to Cooper Kupp at the end, I was sitting like with my wife and like, you know, one of the kids, and I was like, oh my God, like what just happened? Yeah. I like went nuts. It was pretty crazy. But I mean, how could you? I don't know how you say much besides the Chiefs-Bills game. Like that game is just so much craziness, so much unbelievable talent on the field that it's tough to pick. It's tough to pick something else besides that one.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed all of them. I did enjoy the Bengals-Titans game, and I think I always enjoy stories like with McPherson at the end with him looking at Burrow and saying, well, I guess we're going to the AFC Championship.
The kicker,
like, super confident in making a 49-yard field goal, you know? But I agree that Chiefs-Bills game, I mean, what even happened?
I don't know. I didn't have it like on the whole time just because I was in and out of places. Yeah. But I mean, like all of a sudden I like go on Twitter and people like 13 seconds, like, and then you know, NFL overtime's so dumb. Like it was a roller coaster of emotions that people went through.
Yeah, I think there's two buckets in that game that I think can be true at the same time. And the first one is, you know, special teams and defense for the Bills really killed them in that final 13 seconds. I can't believe I'm saying 13 seconds, but you know, not squib kicking it and giving a couple of seconds to their defense and then going into the prevent, which, you know, as the old saying is, the only thing the prevent does is prevent you from winning.
Right.
And giving them a chance to, you know, you're only getting so many misses out of Butker. Like he's not missing that many times in a game, especially after missing an extra point.
Right.
And then I think the other bucket that's true in this conversation is the NFL overtime rules are brutal.
Yeah.
They're just bad.
Yeah.
Like the best player in the game didn't even get a chance to touch the football in overtime.
Right.
Because he lost the coin toss.
Yeah, it's wild.
So
just wild.
I think, you know, without going too much further, because we want to talk about this graphic that we saw. Without going too much further into it, the NFL, if they want to do that during the regular season to try and eliminate injuries, that's one thing. But when it comes to the postseason, there's got to be some sort of like slight change because the best players need to touch the football in overtime. They just have to.
Yeah.
I don't know what it looks like, but they need to take a look because there's no reason Josh Allen shouldn't have touched the ball. And I get it. They should have made a stop, but both can be true. They should have made a stop. They should have squib kicked it, but it went to overtime.
Right.
And that's out of Josh Allen's control, and he should have touched the football in overtime.
Yeah.
So
he should have had he should have had a chance. Everyone in the I think even most Chiefs fans would admit that it was kind of, it's kind of a shice job.
Back, 2-3 years? I can't remember what year it was, but this happened to the Chiefs.
Yeah, right.
Brady beat them in overtime, and Patrick Mahomes never touched the football.
Right.
So, you know, they went into that offseason and actually, you know, requested at ownership meetings that rule change. And that it was turned away. And I think, you know, Josh Allen said it afterward, like, if it was us, we'd be celebrating too.
Right,
so
right.
I think, like, you know, it goes both sides, but I do think that it needs to be looked at. And you know, again, without we can leave it there. I think we both agree that needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
But let's just first 19 starts between Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. Jalen Hurts 334 completions, Josh Allen 311. Completion percentage: Hurts 591, Allen 567. Passing yards: Hurts 4,172, Allen 3,653. Passing touchdowns: Hurts 22, Allen 20. Interceptions: Hurts 13, Allen 19. Hurts has been sacked 39 times, Allen was sacked 46 times. Rushing yards: Allen had 852, Hurts had over 1,000. Rushing TDs, they were pretty even, 13 and 12. And then fumbles: Jalen has fumbled 15 times, Allen 18, and they've lost it. It's pretty similar, 4 and 5. Now, all this to say, Jalen Hurts to me will never be Josh Allen, and that's not the point of this comparison, right? The point of the graphic is to show that Josh Allen was once very similar in terms of stats to Jalen Hurts. Josh Allen has developed and hit his ceiling. People talked about him coming out in the draft as having this type of ceiling, where he was going to be a top 5 quarterback in the league. The arm strength alone lends him to be that type of a quarterback. Jalen Hurts doesn't have that type of arm strength. He doesn't. And I challenge you to find me another quarterback in the league who does have that sort of arm strength, because there's not one.
The guy you played the other night, maybe.
I think in terms of anticipation and like the ability to throw the ball from different angles, absolutely. I think Allen's arm strength, he's got a bazooka on his right. Yeah. I don't know that. I mean, there was a throw that felt like he threw the ball 60 yards and it never left 25 yards in the air. Like, it was just a frozen rope.
Yeah.
And there aren't many quarterbacks who can do that. Maybe Mahomes, but I don't know that he can make that type of throw. Mm-hmm. So I think the point being that Josh Allen developed to his ceiling. Jalen Hurts still, like, I don't think he's hit his ceiling. I don't know that his ceiling is outside of the top 12. Or like inside the top 12. I think his ceiling is like 10 to 12. Mm-hmm. But with the right mix of talent, a top 10 to 12 quarterback is a playoff quarterback, and one that can compete in the playoffs.
Right.
You look at Nick Foles. Like,
yeah, right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
You get hot at the right time, and you can carry a team. And we've already seen Jalen Hurts get this team to the playoffs. So my question to you is, do you think his ceiling is more than what we saw this year? And if it is, do you have like a comp for what he could be? I feel like I do. But I want to see if you have one that you feel like he could be. It doesn't have to be someone in the league right now. Mine is not. But someone that you feel like he could get to.
So to answer the first question, I think that no, this was not his ceiling. I think we've seen enough things that are coachable / obtainable for him. Like the ability to get better at reading the field and stay in the pocket and go through your progressions and things like that are all things that you can learn. Like all the best quarterbacks have to learn it and get better at it. Not all quarterbacks are going to eventually see everything like a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers, but you can get better at it. So I don't think this is his ceiling right now. If I had to make a comparison, man, that's a tough one. I don't know if I have one off the top of my head. While I'm thinking, you go into yours, because
that's fine. I agree with you. I think the arm strength is going to be the arm strength. I think that's just what it is. But being able to throw guys open, anticipate throws, that'll counteract the lack of arm strength that he has. Mm-hmm. I would love to see the deep ball progress. Yeah. I think that his inaccuracy downfield is something that needs to get better, and his ability to read, pre-snap is something that we need to, we need to see improve. I actually think, and there's one piece that I want to give as a caveat when I say this. I see his ceiling being something to a Colin Kaepernick extent. I think he's not as explosive as Kaepernick was, but I think he can take over a game with his legs, and by doing so, exploit teams in the secondary and in the passing game because they're going to start cheating the way they did with Kaepernick. There were a couple of runs this year where you look at him and you say, "Whoa!"
Yeah,
like that. Think about that Saints game, the back-breaking run
Mm-hmm.
when he caused the defensive lineman to fall down.
yeah,
Like those types of plays make you think for a second. Okay, yeah, there's another level to this guy.
yeah,
And I do think for me, Kaepernick had that ability, but he was a little more dynamic. Like his speed was a little bit more breathtaking than Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Jalen's not as fast as he is. He's a little more sneaky in his speed. Where Kaepernick was just he could fly.
Yeah,
He could just fly. And the arm strength that Kaepernick had was crazy good.
Yeah, it
But I
was.
think that's probably the ceiling, that type of a quarterback. And I'd be fine with that. I liked Kaepernick.
Yeah.
So
I think
I'd
a
be
fair
good-
comparison in terms of the like reading, going through progressions and doing that kind of stuff and not sort of defaulting to roll out to either side. I feel like early in Kaepernick's career, he was kind of that guy, right? He really had to work on being comfortable in the pocket. He could never make every throw, right? He was never an Aaron Rodgers, right? Who could just sling the ball wherever he wanted to. But at least he got better at it. And look, he took his team to a Super Bowl, right? He didn't do that all with running. He developed into a better quarterback, better passer. Sure. And look, Hurts is gonna have to. We've seen what happens when a good defense says, we're gonna take away your best asset, which is you running the football. We are gonna make you beat us with your arm. And we've seen how that goes. It did not go well. So he's gonna have to turn that into something that isn't a liability for the team, because when if you want to be a playoff quarterback and play the caliber of teams that make it to the playoffs, you have to be able to carry the team. I'm not saying I don't want him throwing 55 times all the time, but if a team is going to come out and say, like, we're going to give you this first quarter to try and beat us, with your arm, and if you can't do it, why? They're not going to change what they're doing, right? But if you can come out and make them think about it, then at least you have the opportunity again to start running the football, start mixing in some different things. But you have to be able to prove yourself.
Yeah. And I think, the work ethic is there. And for me, that's, I'm happy to know that we have a quarterback who's going to put in the work and do the things that he has to do. And again, we're going to talk so in depth about this offseason. The week after the Super Bowl, the plan is to really focus in on what this offseason should look like. The same way we did with the Phillies when the World Series ended. We're gonna really dive into this offseason and the needs, make some predictions. We'll do a bunch of mocks, but I do think that that Jalen hasn't quite reached his ceiling. The question is, will we see him get closer to that ceiling in year 3? Because if we don't, then I think we probably see a change at quarterback before year 4.
No, this is absolutely that year that it has to happen. We need to see that experience he's had from being a starting quarterback for a full season and getting into a playoff game. Like, you have to see that count for something. You have to see it turn into improvement. So I completely agree with that. And people, get subscribed to the YouTube channel and to the podcast to make sure you don't miss that episode. The Big Eagles off-season pod.
Yeah, and we got a good guest for that one too. We've got a really good guest coming on for that one. So we'll make sure that we advertise that so you're here with us for that one, because it's gonna be a good one. But let's jump to a guy who has reached his ceiling here. Gonna read a quote, agree or disagree. We're jumping to basketball, so bear with us. And as I asked the question, I'd love to know: do you agree or disagree with this? And we'll tell you who said it afterward. Agree or disagree? The baddest guy in the league right now is Joel Embiid. Do you want me to take it, or do you want to go?
I want you to go first.
Yes.
I have the same answer. This isn't a fun one where we're going
I
to
don't know
disagree
that
about
this
this.
one is a real, this one's not a challenge. I mean, Regs, what he is doing right now is so beyond anything I've ever seen from a Sixer fan perspective in terms of absolute dominance. Yeah, we saw Allen Iverson do some special things in a Sixers uniform. Like in our lifetime, we saw that. We saw cool moments, in college. Remember when Andre Iguodala hit the free throws to beat the Bulls? Like we saw some cool moments there. We saw Allen do incredible things, but what we are seeing right now, the dominance that Joel Embiid is displaying on a nightly basis,
Yeah.
is just otherworldly. I don't know how the writers who will vote on MVP will look at this at the end of the year and say that he's not the MVP. I think so often that title becomes tied so closely to this team finished first.
Right.
So their best player must be the MVP. Where would the Sixers be without Joel Embiid, Rags?
See, that's what I was about to say. I'm going to take the most valuable player at its definition. There might not be a team that will be worse off without their best player than the Sixers would be.
Yes.
It would be a travesty. The bigger problem is that he has to play this well for us to even have a chance to win. So that's not the most fun. But just in terms of like calling him the most valuable player, he is the most valuable player. This would be a bottom of the barrel team without Joel Embiid.
Right. I'm actually trying to find. Okay, so before tonight, over the last 4 games, he scored 170 points over 4 games. Most points by a center over 4 games since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1972. I mean, the man was on a streak of 14 consecutive games with 25 or more points, and most of those games were over 30.
Yeah, he had 10 in a 7, 8, 9 in a row with 30.
I mean, it's what he's doing right now is just to a point where it's hard not to stop whenever he's on. It's kind of like what Ryan Howard did over the span of his career in baseball. You have to stop to watch it and truly appreciate what he's doing. This guy is a 7-foot, 300-pound dude who's out there every night just draining mid-range jumpers, making guys look silly on the perimeter that have no business looking silly against a man his size. And he's on our team. and Regs, I think where I'm going with this is all right, here you go. Here it is. Found what I was looking for. Over the last 18 games, okay? This was right before the game tonight. Over the last 18 games, he's averaging 34.2 points per game. He's averaging 10.6 rebounds per game.
That's,
and
oh my God.
55% field goal percentage.
The shots he's making is ridiculous. I've gone back through this stretch, and I can't say I've done this often, but I'm going back and watching the game highlights that the NBA puts on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I go back the day after and I watch, the 10-minute, 15-minute highlight reel.
Yeah.
And the shots that he's making, it just shouldn't happen. You can't be that big and do that kind of stuff. The
touch is unreal.
It's comparable to Kareem because of the sky hook and how much touch that shot required. But the shots that he's making are we haven't seen
post fadeaways.
Yeah.
And elbow fadeaways.
And we haven't seen guys make this besides Giannis and Kevin Durant, but those guys aren't 300 pounds.
Yeah.
That's the difference. It's
smooth. Everything he does, even the handle.
I don't know how people that big do that stuff. I can't understand it.
Now they won again tonight. They beat the Lakers. LeBron did not play tonight, but they did beat the Lakers at home. And he did continue his streak of games over 25. So tonight he went 26, 9, and 7 in 34 minutes.
Okay.
It was good because Toby also had a nice game. So that was a
Yeah, he had a nice one against New Orleans, right? Just recently.
Yep. Yeah. So real quickly, just to give you an update on where they are in the rankings, because I think this is pretty important, because in the standings they are 2.5 games out of first place right now. And that's on the back of Joel Embiid. Like, the role players they're not doing anything. Like, it's basically Embiid and, like, Toby and then Maxey. Like, that's kind of where we're at right
Seth's been missing a fair amount of games here, right?
Yeah. He hasn't been super healthy, and they're kind of struggling in that 2 spot. Because Ferk's been starting and Danny Green's too.
In watching the highlights, like, the defense is so bad.
Yeah.
Like, they need him to score that many points because they just would not come close without it. Like, the defense is not good. But
they're right there.
I know, that's the crazy part, is that you think about it, we still have this guy sitting in, his house in Las Vegas or wherever the hell he is, who was like a top 5 defender in the entire NBA. And every time, like, when I watch the highlights, I think, man, like, do I wish I had him back? Like, the answer is no, but you see the void that it kind of has left on this team from a defensive standpoint. Because if you can, if you could put together, right, Simmons on the defensive end plus Embiid playing like this, like, I don't know, man. It's like this team's being talked about as a title contender, where I think a lot of people are just talking about them as, well, can Embiid keep this up to keep them relevant? Because I think if he falls off, or I don't even want to talk about anything else happening to him because I don't want to put that juju in the universe. But if something happens where he just takes a slight step back, this team isn't going to win games. And it's been truly, I marvel at basketball players. That the game I've played the most of my life is basketball. Baseball has turned into my first love in sports as I've gotten older, but the sport I played most growing up, all throughout my 20s, was basketball. And I appreciate so much guys who, just the talent level of some of these guys in the NBA it's truly unbelievable what they can do. Like, when you think about you trying to go out and play a pickup game, like any normal person, like, you can't hit 55% of those shots he's taken. Like, it just doesn't happen. And the dude is 7'3" and 300 pounds. And it's just crazy. It's just crazy.
So I think, then the question lends itself to, what you just mentioned about, it's hard for me to even imagine that Ben Simmons even exists anymore.
I know.
But we're 2 weeks away from the deadline. February 10th. And Greg's, like, it's really hard for me to sit here and say that, if Daryl Morey stands pat, then I'm going to be okay with that, because we just sat here for the last 10 minutes and focused on Joel Embiid and what he's doing. This would be probably, correct me if I'm wrong. See if you can think of somebody else. I don't know that there would be a bigger waste of a player's prime in NBA history than what they'd be wasting with Joel Embiid.
You can really only think of Michael going to play baseball. Like, what other comparison?
Yeah, but that was
No, yeah, I just mean in terms of someone literally, like, if you want to say wasting a year of their prime, right?
Yeah.
Granted, the circumstances are different, but it's like, at some point,
it's almost organizational failure, right? Like, if you don't do something to bring a player or two here that could help win right now, even role players who could be effective, like, look at it this way. You're going to probably find someone who can score more than Simmons did in the playoffs. Like,
It's
I
got.
get the defense.
It's
I
not
get
that.
the defense. But
Yeah.
come on.
It's
Like,
not that it
what are we
will
doing?
be. It's not that it could be a sort of front office. It is like it's neglect at this point. We like just look at what this man is doing.
Yeah.
We've seen this. It's the history of the NBA. You can't waste these guys. Like there's a window. Bill Simmons always talks about the window.
Yeah.
Teams have this certain window. You need your best player playing at their all-time best, and you need to have guys around him that can help you win a championship. You can't keep him. You can't keep him past the deadline. You can't do it.
Yeah.
If you do, I would completely understand if Joel Embiid went into the office and like ripped Morey a new one and went to the owner and said, "You need to get me a guy who's going to help me win because I'm doing all I need to do, and you're not. No one's helping me."
Yeah, you're 2 weeks away, and I know that if they're gonna do this, it's we talked earlier. I thought it would be done by now.
Yeah.
If you go back and listen to like 6-7 episodes ago, I talked about it being done probably, I don't know, December.
Yeah. Yep.
I thought it would be done by now,
Yep.
and here we are. We're 2 weeks from the deadline, and we're still hoping that something happens. And the Sixers they're like I said, they're right there. The NBA is wide open.
Yeah.
Like there's not a team that I look at and say, "Oh, they're gonna win it." Like the Sixers could be that team. They could
honestly.
very well be that team. Like, so I'm just gonna pull up their schedule here for the next couple weeks. So they won tonight. They've got the Kings and the Grizzlies. Saturday they play the Kings. That at home, that should be a win.
Yep.
The Grizzlies are tough.
Yeah,
that's
Ja's playing so good.
That's a team that could eat them alive just based on their athleticism.
I mean, look, that's a team that just relies on scoring. As they're just going to say, we're going to play you in 136 to 130, but we're gonna get to 136. So you better keep up with us.
Yup, and I don't know that the Sixers can. So that one might be a loss. But then they got the Wizards, which should be a win.
Yeah.
Going to Dallas is going to be tough, but that's a team they can match up with pretty well.
Yeah, that team's not playing as well as a lot of people expected.
Yeah, the Bulls.
That'll be tough.
And then the Suns, and that's the last game before the deadline. So you're looking, and the Suns are at home. So, that's 3-3, 4-2 maybe.
Yeah, I say the Suns are a loss. I mean, I think they got two losses there, probably Suns and Memphis. And
maybe
then
the Bulls.
Yeah, and then Bulls, Dallas, and maybe the Wizards. Like those are kind of the toss-ups if you had to really guess.
I think 3-3 is probably fair through that. So they're probably going to be like when the deadline rolls around, right where they're at right now.
Right.
Which isn't a bad place to be in terms of the standings. They're 9 games over. And that's pretty good, all things considered, because you are being carried by one ginormous human being.
Right. He is a ginormous human being, and he's literally carrying the entire team.
Yes, and they're in a good place because they're about 4.5 games up on the team that's out right now. So they'll and a half a game out of the Bucks and the Nets. So I've been saying all year, I think they're going to end up in that like 2 to 4 range.
Mm-hmm.
And I still believe that, but they got to make sure that the guy who I forget exists doesn't exist in a Sixers uniform anymore. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it just can't. You have to do something to help this guy. You just have to. You have to.
Yeah. It's got to be something. It's got to be something other Tobias Harris. Like,
listen, man. I really do think that from a offensive standpoint, I think you probably have enough if everyone's healthy with Seth and Tobias,
my boy Tyree
and Tyree. I think you maybe have enough. Yeah. Really, in the playoffs, you just need like a good Embiid game and a good Seth Curry game. Yeah. It's the defensive side. They need like a 3-and-D guy. They just need him, and I know everybody wants him in the NBA, so it's really hard to get a good one. but they need shooting around Embiid, and they need somebody who can play like perimeter defense. They just need to, because Embiid, for as much as people talk about his defense in the past, I think he was able to do that because Simmons was putting him in good positions to play good defense.
Sure.
I think now he has to conserve so much energy on defense. Like, you watch these highlights and he's just like, I'm not going for that. Like, I'm not going to pick up another foul or like, bust my ass to get to that help side. Like, just because, I need to go score 40 points. So.
Yep. It's a tough situation, and it's, it would be, there would be some front office question marks, and it would be a scar on Daryl Morey's otherwise pretty flawless career.
Yeah, he's got to let the ego go at this point and just get something done that helps the team. That's what it has to come down to.
Yeah, because Ben Simmons is showing he's just going to sit out.
Yeah.
He doesn't care. He doesn't bother him any. He's getting paid. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
So, you just move along and you get what you can and hope and hope that it's enough to walk alongside of the best player in the NBA right now, because that's what Joel Embiid is.
He is.
So that's what he is. All right. We're gonna move outside of Philadelphia sports, Rags.
Here we go.
We're gonna do a little Philly in here.
A little bit.
But man, the agree to disagree is gonna come a little bit later. Major League Baseball right now is an absolute disgrace. Let's just start with the lockout. Let's just give a little bit of an update, because it feels like it's the ultimate like 2-step forward, step back.
Yeah.
Or 1 step forward, 2 steps back, or we take 1 step forward and then we're 3 steps back. Like there's just no real momentum in these talks right now. Major League Baseball wants players to be paid earlier. That's really what they want. And they're trying to work it off a war, player war, and having like this pocket of money that can be pulled based off of war. And war is such a weird stat because it's still evolving.
Yeah, right.
It's hard to nail that down. But man, when I saw like what Major League Baseball, the owners are saying they're willing to give in terms of a pool versus what the union's asking for, they're so far apart. like they're so far apart that I'm not sure. Like, pitchers and catchers are supposed to report in 2 weeks.
Yeah. God.
If we don't get to the point where like spring training is in full swing by like, I don't know, that first week in March.
Yeah.
Like, they might have to think about moving the season back, Rags.
Yeah, it's all terrible. It's not good. Like I said, the start of the baseball season is something that I know you and I, and Joseph has mentioned that, we all look forward to so much.
Yeah.
Like we maybe had plans to like go down to Florida and catch a few spring training games. Like,
did you?
We love going down to Clearwater. Even when the Phillies aren't there, it's just become a spot for us. But of course, with the boys getting older and being able to take them to, baseball games is something that I truly love doing. But like, even beyond that, it's just, I don't know how. I think when you just take again, we stepped outside of Philadelphia, so I think we can take a larger, view of this. All you hear is that baseball is struggling to keep people interested. That when when our grandfather and father's generation is gone, like the percentage of baseball fans is practically cut in half, because listen, my dad wasn't into baseball. He just wasn't. He wasn't into it, right? I got into it just because he allowed us to play any sport we wanted, right? And I got into baseball and have loved it. And I will continue, to share that with my children. And I think that I've converted, the two that know what the heck's going on, at least. And we're working on the 3-year-old for sure. But so I'm one of those people who will sort of push that next generation to love baseball as much as I did. And I think you're the same way. Right. But such a part of that fan base is the people older than us, a generation or two above us. And it just is, the audience is slowly dwindling. Like it's not getting bigger. The audience is not getting bigger. So when you start to talk about like missing games and pushing season back and missing spring training and all those things, it's just like what are we doing? You know, can we like, I get it when you're talking about money, there's no rational thoughts in the room. And it's just how it is. When guys who make that much money squabble over, you know, can I get this quarter of the penny or can you? So obviously I can't relate to that, right? I can't relate to being in those meetings. I can't relate to making that much money and thinking about money in that sense. But I just think about it from a fan perspective and from a sport, a baseball perspective. It's like, guys, we're not helping ourselves here. We're just not. Like, to be I don't know. It hurts as a baseball fan to think that this could hurt baseball's future, when I know that like you and I are some of those few people of our generation trying to preserve that.
Yeah. So I want to kind of touch on what you're saying. In baseball, people say it's a dying sport. The ratings would say otherwise, which is great news.
That is good news.
But I think one thing that I always say to people when we talk about this specific subject is when you think about who is the most popular baseball player in your mind, the guy that like the most marketable guy in the sport?
Mike Trout.
Okay. I would say Mike Trout or Shohei Ohtani. I think either one.
Yep. Nope. Perfect. Yep. Two perfect choices. I wouldn't disagree with either of them.
Yeah, I think either one is a pretty fair assessment of the sport. Who's the most marketable basketball player? Pretty easy answer.
LeBron James.
Yep. How about most marketable football player?
Tom Brady.
Yeah, Brady, Mahomes.
Yeah.
I think you could go either direction there. Here's what's difficult for baseball. You can market LeBron James, and I'm going to watch because I know the ball's going to be in LeBron James's hands every time the Lakers have the ball.
Literally.
If he's on the court, he's going to touch the ball, which means something incredible is going to happen. If you tell me that Tom Brady's going to be on national television, I'm watching.
Yeah.
Because Tom Brady gets to touch the ball every play. The problem with baseball is Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout both play on the West Coast, so they're never nationally televised.
Yeah.
And if they were, how many plays are they involved in the game? 6, 7, maybe tops?
I mean, Ohtani is obviously the enigma in that situation, but if you just take it from a Trout standpoint.
Yes. 7, maybe 8.
Yeah. 6 at bats at most in a game?
And I'm actually going like, fly ball to center field.
Right.
Like Trout settles under it. Yawn.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's one of those things of like, baseball's a hard sport to market, and the ownership group and the guys that run the game don't really try and get creative. Like, think about football, a very marketable sport. They have that Nickelodeon thing that they've done, right? Like they have that slime time that they call, and they make it attractive to kids.
Yeah, listen, the NFL, I don't praise them on a lot of things because I think they're probably a big group of scumbags, but that thing, like doing that is genius. Yes. Why not? They're just showing reruns of like Paw Patrol and SpongeBob SquarePants on Nickelodeon. You know what I mean? Why not take that time? And a dad like could literally have the game on his iPad, watching the regular broadcast, and then he could have it up for his kids on Nickelodeon. He's not missing the game. He's not missing any plays. He's not, again, he's got one AirPod in one ear, right, to listen to the broadcast on his iPad. Like, it was an unbelievably smart thing to do.
Get Fernando Tatis Jr. mic'd up for a game, and like, you'll find 5 or 6 kids that are going to fall in love with the game by listening to him and talking and interacting. Like, it's a hard sport to market because the best players aren't involved enough to market them.
Yeah.
And that's hard. That like it's a challenge. It's
Yeah.
not an easy sport to fall in love with when you can't find a player to fall in love
Yeah.
with.
Or if you don't have the opportunity to get there in person.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's a really difficult sport to watch on television unless you are obsessed,
Right.
like you and I. So this is where this is how far apart they are right now, and why I think they're in trouble. I was talking a little bit earlier about the bonus pool piece.
Yeah.
So let me read you the exact situation.
Okay.
MLB agreed to accept parameters of a pre-arbitration bonus pool for top 30 WAR. So if if a player that's pre-arbitration lands in the top 30 of WAR, then they get to pull from a bonus pool of money.
Right. Yep.
The Players Association is seeking $105 million for that bonus pool. Okay? You want to know what the league offered? Do you have a guess at what the league offered?
This is where the YouTube's going to be really good because my facial expression right now is.
Just guess.
Hold on.
Just guess.
So as we're saying, the difference is 30 million, 115 or 105?
No. So the bonus pool is that the player would have to have a top 30 WAR.
No, right. Oh, so they're saying a top 105 WAR?
No, a top 30 WAR.
Top 30 WAR.
So right now Reese Hoskins is in arbitration.
Right.
So 5 years ago, if Reese Hoskins was in the top 30 in wins above replacement,
right,
then he would get money from a bonus pool.
Right.
The Players Association wants that bonus pool to be $105 million.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
I'm asking you to guess
okay. Yeah, okay. 52.
10. For those of you not watching, we are just staring at each other silently. $10 million. They are $95 million apart on this. They've agreed that this is a good idea. That if you are pre-arbitration and you land in the top $30 million or top 30 players of WAR, which is arbitrary, by the way. Let's go back to that.
Yeah, right.
That you should get bonus money from this pool. But they're $95 million apart in the pool.
Oh my God, we're screwed, aren't we, bud?
Baseball is a long way off. That's not even I don't even know if that's the worst thing with baseball right now. I don't know if that's in the top 5. The Hall of Fame is a nightmare too. Let's just go away from the conversations because I get so frustrated talking about it.
Yeah.
It's millionaires and billionaires fighting about money. And you know how that makes me feel.
I do know. Yeah.
So let's jump to this because this is our last segment of the night. Hall of Fame. One player will be inducted this year. And that's David Ortiz. Is David Ortiz a Hall of Famer? Yeah.
Yeah, I say yes.
Probably. Is he a first ballot?
Nah, probably not.
No, he's absolutely not. If Edgar Martinez, the greatest DH of all time, took 10 years to get in, David Ortiz shouldn't be in the first.
Yeah, he's one of those things. I think it's one of those things that he's recent enough and he was attached to such an iconic, right? When you're one of the guys who wins a World Series for Boston for the first time in 100 some years, right?
Yeah.
You're automatically, your stature is notched up, right?
Right.
Again, it's one of those things like you even talked about with Ryan Howard. Like no one knew who David Ortiz was before that happened. And after that, he was pretty good, right? He was good for another few seasons. But there's no sort of like a Albert Pujols-like longevity or even a Manny Ramirez, right? You knew who Manny Ramirez was for a long time before you knew who David Ortiz was. Yeah, so I think he, got a little bump.
I need to look a little more closely at Ortiz's
Career
numbers.
stats.
And I got to be honest with you, like my purpose in this conversation wasn't really even to focus on Ortiz.
Yeah. We can move on. Yeah.
No, I do want to. I want to peek because
I truly
wanna
don't know
know-
like how his career numbers stack up.
Yeah, no, yeah, no. I mean, his number longevity wise, he did it for a while. 10-time All-Star,
That's
540 career home runs.
Being above 500 is a big deal.
Yeah, 55 WAR. Yeah, no, he did it. I mean, he did it. Even until the year he retired, 2016, he had 38 home runs.
Yeah, so look, maybe, obviously not being Boston people, I didn't focus too much on him.
No, I agree. Same, but he was mentioned in this steroid conversation quite a bit. I had no comment on it.
He was in that one report, right?
Yeah, and I think this is where this conversation's heading.
Yeah.
MLB voting for the Hall of Fame is an absolute sham.
Yeah.
It's an absolute sham. Let's focus on the three dudes who are now off the ballot for good. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Kurt Schilling.
Yeah.
We're talking about a guy who had the most home runs of any player ever. We're talking about a guy who's won more Cy Youngs, I believe. I double check me on that, but I'm pretty sure Clemens has more Cy Youngs than anybody else. And we're talking about arguably the best postseason pitcher in the last 3 decades. And none of the three are in the Hall of Fame. And we're going to claim steroids. But over here is a guy who was accused of the same thing, named. Yeah. The difference is the media didn't like these three. They didn't like Bonds because he didn't talk to him. They didn't like Clemens because he wasn't like Mr. Friendly. And they didn't like Schilling because of his political views.
Yeah, they don't like him now.
Right. But David Ortiz smiled a lot.
Yeah.
So
and he's on Fox Baseball now.
It's fine he did steroids.
Yeah.
He smiled at us and he was nice to us.
And now he's a broadcaster. He's like us now.
Yeah, but we don't like Kurt Schilling because he said some stuff politically we don't agree with. And look, I don't necessarily agree with Kurt Schilling. I don't think he's a great guy.
No, he's a horrible person.
But Kurt Schilling belongs in the Hall of Fame.
That's not what we're asking.
He belongs in the Hall of Fame. This is not the Hall of Good Guys, Regs. It's not the Hall of Good Guys.
Yeah.
There's not good people in the Hall of Fame.
There's not.
Like, I'm sorry, Babe Ruth wasn't a great guy.
Yeah, right. I mean, just go back like to any time before there were black guys in the leagues. I don't think any of those guys were good people.
They like.
By the way, you were right. Roger Clemens has 7 Cy Youngs, and Randy Johnson is behind him with 5.
Okay, so Roger Clemens
right.
does have the most of all time.
Yep.
Okay.
By 2, not us,
Right. It was sort of a shot in the dark, but it
nailed it.
Ty Cobb, not a great guy. Like a bad dude. Like just a bad dude.
Yeah.
Like just go read up on Ty Cobb.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't a good guy. I just
almost gave us our first spit take on the YouTube.
Yeah, there you go.
Bringing up Ty Cobb.
Some people would argue with what I'm about to say, and I'm going to leave this. I'll leave this out there to you. Barry Bonds is a Hall of Famer before he left a Pirate uniform, right? Like, and we have this joke in our friend group about Phil and I becoming like 24-hour famous because of dressing like Barry Bonds before steroids. I was
about to say that front page is somewhere in that basement, isn't it?
It's to my right. Actually.
I was about to say, yep.
It'll pop up on the YouTube video. But Bonds was a Hall of Famer before he left Pittsburgh.
I mean, he was Ken Griffey Jr. before Ken Griffey Jr.
Bonds was incredible.
Yeah.
And some people would argue, oh, you can't make that argument. Like, you can't say, he was a Hall of Famer before, that's like saying that they were great for 10 holes and then they cheated for the last 8. Like, fine. Like, fine, make that argument if you want to. But Barry Bonds was always great at baseball. And when Barry Bonds was doing steroids, 70% of baseball was doing steroids. He wasn't the only guy out there cheating.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Are you going to tell me Jeff Bagwell didn't do steroids?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here? Jeff Bagwell's in the Hall of Fame. What are we doing? Because he was never like tested positive that he didn't do them. Like, come on, guys. What are we doing here?
They have some stick up their butt about Bonds setting the record and him.
And just not being a nice guy to them. He didn't want
right.
to talk to the media. He
Right.
was a shell.
Yeah, right. Tiger Woods didn't like talking to the media. Greatest golfer of all time. Would you leave Tiger Woods out of the Hall of Fame because he didn't talk to the media a lot? Or he always gives the same answers? For 30 years, he's been given the same answers to the golf media. I agree with you. I think Schilling it's so dumb. Like he wasn't a part of the steroid stuff. Like you said, he's like, you don't agree with him politically. That makes no difference. He deserves to be in there.
He was trending in the right direction last year.
Yeah. Clemens, I was never a fan of, but you can't deny the man. Like you just can't do it. Like
7 Cy Youngs? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, you just can't do it. And Barry Bonds, even for being a part of that picture on your wall, it's like the dude was like the 5-tool player you talked about before Ken Griffey came along.
Right.
He was literally that era before Ken Griffey. He was that guy. And I always said that even with all the steroid stuff, and if it made him hit more home runs, I was like, steroids don't improve your hand-eye coordination.
Correct.
Steroids don't improve your ability to recognize a baseball out of a pitcher's hand. They don't affect your reaction time. If anything, they're supposed to make it slower because as your muscles build, like you can't move as fast. Like, yeah, you're going to be stronger. But Barry Bonds had all those things. I think if you took away the home run record, Barry Bonds is still a Hall of Famer. And I think for me, that's all you have to think about. If you take away the thing that you have a stick up your butt about, would you still make him a Hall of Famer? And I think the answer has to be yes. It has to be.
He was hitting against guys who were using them.
Right.
I think the longevity of Barry Bonds probably improved through using them.
Sure.
Maybe injuries would have caught up with him if he hadn't.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think that's what happened with Griffey. Griffey didn't use, and he ended up injured a lot more than he would have been otherwise. But, you could maybe use that against him. That being said, I think, it's an era of baseball, right? There were 3, 4, maybe 5 guys on that 93 Phillies team that were using them. And they're, they weren't Barry Bonds. Like, Dykstra was clearly on roids in 93 and finished runner-up for the MVP to who? Barry Bonds.
Yeah.
But at that point was still as skinny as I am.
Right.
And, Dalton using, Hollins using, like, Incaviglia probably using, like, plenty of dudes who I just said the name Incaviglia, and 50% of the people listening to this podcast are like, who is that?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it just goes to show that Barry Bonds, people walked Barry Bonds with the bases loaded.
Yeah.
Like, this is
still
a dude
wild.
Who was feared because his ability to hit a baseball, not just hit a baseball out of the park because he was using steroids, but to recognize a ball and be able to turn on it or do whatever he wanted to it.
Literally anything he wanted.
He was so feared.
Yeah.
I just to this day will never understand why he's not in Cooperstown, and I hope that at some point one of these veterans committees, there's another committee that's voting in December, and I hope that all three of these names end up on there, and I hope that all three of them get in. And again, I'll go back to I don't think Curt Schilling's a good dude. I don't. But I think that because he didn't agree with his views, he called them on that. And this year, he went down in the voting because of it.
Right.
And that's atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
Atrocious.
Yeah.
So hopefully those three guys get in. I really hope that they do. And a guy like A-Rod too, who already paid through suspension, like should be in.
I mean, again, Alex Rodriguez was the Mike Trout of his time. Like that's how highly he was talked about. And he was really, really good.
Yep.
And I don't think he used steroids until later in his career anyway. Probably for that longevity piece,
2009 when they beat us.
Yeah. Yeah. God.
Okay. It's okay.
I know.
It's okay.
Yep.
I'm not bitter.
No,
I'm not bitter.
No, not at all. I'm not twitching.
Real quickly, just touching on the Phillies who were on the ballot. Ryan Howard's off. I kind of figured that was going to happen. I think I said that on the show earlier.
You did.
Jimmy Rollins stayed on. He'll be on. I didn't get a whole ton of votes. I'm not hopeful.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Scott Rowland
stayed on, right?
Stayed on and
had a pretty big bump, didn't he?
He's got a big bump. I think next year or the year after he's in.
All right.
And we'll probably talk about that next year when the time comes.
Yeah.
I've had people ask me about that quite a bit and say they don't think he belongs. I still do think he belongs. I think I'm happy that the committee is starting to look at defensive metrics and see that, he was a pretty underrated baseball player.
Yeah.
Pretty underrated baseball player. As much as I don't like the guy, really good ball player.
Yeah.
Schilling's off, so we'll see what happens with the Veterans Committee. And one guy I didn't talk about, Abreu's still on. He'll hang around. He's not going to get in, but he'll hang around.
Yeah.
One guy I didn't talk about who will be interesting to see is Billy Wagner.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be in year 6 next year. He's about 55% of the vote. It's trending, but I don't know that he's going to get enough in the next 3 or 4 years to get there. So
I mean, he held didn't he hold on all-time save record for a little bit?
His postseason numbers are what's killing him, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not the save record. If you look up his postseason numbers, I think his ERA is
it's not good.
Over 10.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's bad. So, I don't foresee him getting in, but I forgot about him in our last episode. So, look, moral of the story: Jimmy Rollins stayed on. That's awesome news because
yes.
I do think Jimmy belongs. Chase Utley will be in the ballot next year. I think he'll hang around for a while. I think writers like him enough. I like the way he played. He'll never get a New York vote, but his postseason numbers. Keep an eye, postseason moments, That's the thing. That series against the Yankees, that Game 5 play where he pump faked and threw a guy out the plate, those things stick in writers' minds.
Yeah. And
I do believe that he'll at least stay on the ballot. And hopefully those 3 guys get in. They deserve to be in the hall. And it'll be disappointing to go to Cooperstown the next time I get around to it and not see a plaque for Barry Bonds, for Curt Schilling, and for Roger Clemens. Those 3 guys those names get said, and without them, I feel like baseball kind of loses some meaning. So, you think Schilling, you think Bloody Sock, you think Clemens, and you automatically think Cy Young, Rocket, and you think Bonds, and you watch in your memory all those balls flying out into McCovey Cove. My goodness.
I just think of the waggle.
Yeah.
God, and how afraid you were every time your team had to pitch against that guy.
Yep. And that swing.
Oh,
that
my
swing.
God.
That swing. My goodness. My goodness. Well, man, dude, what a show. Hey, like first YouTube show.
Dude,
Love
we had to
this.
bring a banger for the YouTube,
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be curious. Like, please comment. I want to know what you think about Kurt and Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens in the Hall, and really curious on thoughts about Joel Embiid as well. And real quickly, just a real quick fixated, Regs, if you don't mind.
Of course, never mind.
We're gonna jump back to the Eagles here for a minute. Yesterday, Brandon Brooks announced his retirement from the Eagles, and we've talked a lot about offensive linemen on this show. Like we've talked about Jason Kelsey, and we've talked about Lane Johnson, and we talked about Jordan Mailata quite a bit too.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Brooks, man, what a tough career.
Yeah.
Like this dude has had. I mean, the Achilles comes back from it. There's the other one. Comes back from it in record time. Dislocates his shoulder in a playoff game. Like, bounces back from that. Gets hurt again. Like, but for a stretch of time, after we signed him, was the best guard in football.
Yeah.
Like, bar none.
Yeah.
The best guard in football. And I think, like, what I want to fixate on tonight is just not what he did on the field as being the best guard in football, but what he was so transparent about and what he overcame off the field with his mental health, the anxiety that he faced and overcame. Just the amount of respect that I have for him, because deal with anxiety. Like I have anxiety, diagnosed with anxiety, and dealing with that on a small scale as a elementary school principal, like 500 kids, 100 staff members, like my anxiety doesn't impact me on a day-to-day. I have moments, where it hits me, but this dude was playing in front of 60,000 people every Sunday, and the anxiety that he must have felt to be perfect and to protect the dude standing behind him and to assist the dude to his right and to his left and to make those people cheer. I can't imagine what that must have felt like. And, the grace at which he handled it and the ability to speak out and own it and say, look, I have to take a step away because I'm struggling right now. And if you're struggling, don't be afraid to take a step away and lean on the people that you love and that you care about. Speaks volumes to his character. And I hope that once he gets his degree from Penn, because he's going back to do that, that that the Eagles do bring him back to the organization. Because I think from a sports psychology perspective, what he'd be able to do to assist players through struggles and mental health pieces of their careers is not even comparable to what's in the building. And, Lane Johnson would be the first one to tell you what he did to support him through everything that he just went through this year. So I'm fixated on Brandon Brooks this week and want to say thank you again. I'm sure Brandon Brooks will never hear this. But if he were to take a minute to listen to this moment, Brandon, thank you so much for your career as an Eagle, for the Super Bowl, for your years of being the absolute best guard in football, for coming here and being a part of Philadelphia, and for loving this fan base as much as we loved you, and for more than anything, for being vulnerable and not hiding your struggles, but illuminating them for people like us to know that, we're not alone and that superheroes like yourself still struggle with the things that normal people like us struggle with. So fixated on you being that dude and appreciating you for everything that you did for us in Philadelphia and that you'll continue to do. So thanks, Brandon. We love you, and we're so happy we got to share a piece of your career, man.
Amen, man. So, listen, people out there, comment on the YouTube video. Let us know what you think. We will read every comment. We will respond to every comment. Make sure you follow up with us, on Twitter at, Phixated Pod. So you can reach out to us on Twitter. As he's putting a lot of his thoughts out there on Twitter. So I hope you're following along with us. It's been great to see him taking advantage of the new Twitter account. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just go on YouTube and search Birdies and Beer Podcast. It'll be the first thing that pops up. You'll find all the videos from the video from this episode and all future episodes in their own playlist on that channel, so you can keep track of them. Check out the Two Way Miss podcast if you're into golf. Check that out. That'll be on the YouTube channel as well. But thanks as always to Azzy. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening and watching. And we will catch you on the next episode.
Take care, everybody.
Oh my God! Deep to right field, way up there and way out of here.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.